Murder is a horrendous violation of a fundamental right. A right to live. A right to experience the joys of being alive, whether those be falling in love, getting your dream job, or something as simple as eating your favorite meal. Murder strips you of existence. But some murders and some murderers go down in history not just because they stripped someone of that right, but because of how they stripped someone of that right, because of how many people they stripped of that right. One such murderer was roaming the dark and quiet highways of southern India in the late 2000s. This is the story of those highways, of that murderer. This is the story of Psycho Shankar. Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aishwarya.
And I'm Aryaan.
And the case that I have for you today is so incredibly gut-wrenching.
When you said the highway murders, I was like, damn, I've never heard of this case.
Sure.
But you ended it with, it's Psycho Shankar.
Right.
And I know how many times people have requested us to cover this case.
Crazy.
I have no idea about it, Aishwarya.
Really?
I have no idea about this case.
All right, I'm excited to get into it.
But before we get into the case, there is something Aishwarya and I have wanted to address for a while. It's something that you have asked in the comments for a few months now, and I think this is the right time we talk about it.
Absolutely.
You've been asking how I've managed to go from this in 2021 to this in 2024. And this fitness transformation has been a long time coming, and it's been a long journey for me. Predicated primarily on, of course, working out, but being intentional about what I put in my body.
Oh yeah, the Aryaan you know now is not only a gym bro, but he's like a food bro if there is such a thing.
Yeah, I'm a food bro. To be fair though, Aishwarya, you're also kind of a gym bro.
Yes, I am now.
And a big part of being a gym bro or a gym goer, or just somebody who wants to live a normal, healthy life, is watching out for your protein intake.
Yep,
you really got to
absolutely.
get that protein in. And when we used to live in America, it was so easy to get high quality, well priced and tasty protein powders, protein bars.
Whatever,
And since we've moved back here, the amount of charades in products, from gimmicky marketing tricks to wrong percentages, random ingredients,
or being told you'll get the fake product when you order it from an actual brand.
all
It's insane.
all under the guise of this is healthy for you.
Right.
This was all until you recommended I try the whole truth bar.
Yes.
Guys, I have not stopped since. And I'm not saying this because they are sponsoring the video. I'm saying this because I genuinely eat this bar all the freaking time. It's because it's tasty, but not only because it's tasty, because then I'd be eating only chocolate, which I did up until 2-3 years
Transformation.
ago. I eat it because it's actually healthy.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of how it's actually healthy. I'm going to make you read a list of ingredients from some of the other top, so to say, Indian protein bars.
Sure.
And let's see what you think of these ingredients, Aishwarya.
All right. I'm excited for this. Maltitol. Sounds like a toilet cleaner. Fructose. If this isn't like the third longest word in the English language, I'd be surprised. Fructoligosaccharide.
Yes, okay.
Jesus Christ. That sounds like an X-Men character.
Yeah.
And a really creepy one at that.
Go through the list, dude.
Humectant. That sounds like a hemorrhage, but in a different part of your body. I don't know what that is.
Okay, but you get the point.
I get the point. This is all really weird.
Yeah. And to be fair,
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
I'll be fair, Aishwarya. These ingredients sound kind of cool.
They do.
They do.
Like super villainy cool.
Super villainy cool.
Yeah.
Whole truth, the ingredients are kind of boring. I will say, I know they're a sponsor. Their ingredients are kind of boring. They just have 6 to 8 clean ingredients.
Okay.
And let me just read you. These are all the ingredients from one of their bars. In fact, they're the double cocoa bar, which is my favorite.
Okay.
These are all the ingredients. Okay. Cashew, dates, whey protein, almonds, cocoa powder, cocoa butter. 6. Now, that's boring, but it's yummy. And it's actually
That's
healthy for
amazing.
you.
We've said no to sponsors like betting apps in the past because we believe in giving you guys the whole truth.
No pun intended.
So go visit thewholetruthfoods.com, grab your bar, use the link in our description, and use the code DESI20 at checkout for 20% off your order.
Now, let's get started with the case for today.
And the case for today is one where India's most prolific serial killer hid the whole truth from the country for years. For this case, we'd like to thank the work of Saurabh Mukherjee in his book titled The Highway Murders. It formed an invaluable source for the research in this episode. To begin this story, I'm taking you back to the year 2009, to the 23rd day of August, when a police constable by the name of M. Priyamani was getting off work in Tamil Nadu. 39-year-old Priyamani was a hard-working policewoman stationed at an all-women police station in the Erode district. But despite her hard work, these last few days at the station had been really hard. You see, Deputy CM M.K. Stalin was visiting the Erode district back then, and patrol duties for all police personnel had suddenly increased, leading to long, grueling days without proper meals or time to rest. Fun fact, M.K. Stalin is the current CM of Tamil Nadu, having risen through the ranks since back then. But anyway, Priyamani had had a very tiring few days. This didn't seem like the job she had signed up for, A strong woman, she had envisioned fighting crime in some tangible way. But the reality of being a police officer had struck. She spent most of her years as a traffic cop or doing this, providing security detail to politicians. So, on this evening of the 23rd, after work, Priyamani was tired as hell. She just wanted to head home, be done with duty for the day, and go back to the comforting arms of her husband. But as she waited at the bus station on National Highway 47 and waited some more, the bus she needed to take just didn't show up. In a time before mobile phones and the convenience of Uber, Priyamani now needed a different way to get back home, many kilometers away, to the safety of her own four walls. She obviously couldn't spend the night at the bus stop. That obviously was not safe, she must have thought. So when she saw a bike driving towards her from a distance, she thought she had found herself a safe ride home. She waved her arm out, signaling the rider to stop for her, and the rider did. "Are you headed to Singapore?" she asked, and the rider nodded yes. Phew, she must have thought, her comfy bed seeming so close. She sat on the bike with a man she had never known, and the two rode off towards Singapore. Maybe the fact that she was a police officer gave her some comfort. Surely the sickly man in front of her wouldn't try anything with her. That night, as Priyamani's husband Manyan waited for the love of his life to return home, his wait didn't seem to end. Hours passed and Priyamani didn't return. The pit in his stomach grew only larger. But we've seen this before in cases from so many decades ago. What can you do? With no way to call anyone and nobody to alert in the dead of the night, Manyan went to bed, hoping to see his wife back the next morning. But the next morning was the same as the night before, devoid of Priyamani's presence. While at home, her husband was panicking and getting ready to report her missing. Her senior police officers were getting irritated that she hadn't shown up to work. Luckily for Manyan, his wife was an officer herself, and so he reported her missing to her police station, where the matter was taken seriously. Inspector S. Swaminathan was put in charge of the disappearance, and while he was doing the best he could, there seemed to be absolutely no clue of where Priyamani went. It seemed like she just walked out of the station that night and vanished into nothingness. But while the investigation S. Swaminathan was conducting on the disappearance of Priyamani did not yield any sign of her, it did reveal something else that was so eerie and so weird, it made Swaminathan fear the safety of all women in the state. Priyamani was not the first or not the last to go missing from National Highway 47. After calling police stations in the vicinity and then calling police stations in distant parts of Tamil Nadu, to then calling police stations in the nearby states of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh in possible search of Priyamani, Inspector Swaminathan realized that dozens of women had been going missing across a stretch of National Highway 47 that had slowly begun to be called the Highway of Terror. What was peculiar was that a lot of the women that had been going missing were prostitutes, while some like Priyamani were not. The community of prostitutes in Tamil Nadu were sick of their sisters and friends vanishing or showing up dead. A lot of these women would turn up dead in remote parts around the highway, in areas like ditches or outside cemeteries or in nalas badly decomposed, having been eaten by wild animals. Others would never be seen, dead or alive again. While all these women seemed different in many regards, something about this pattern of women going missing or being found dead around the highway stuck out to Swaminathan. He wasn't sure he had a serial killer on his hands yet, and to even utter the term serial killer without proof to his superiors would be social suicide, so he kept quiet. He kept quiet until he found two links that tied all of these women together and brought a serial killer psycho to the front. The first of these two links came a month after Priyamani had gone missing. A group of villagers near the highway of terror, close to where Priyamani's last bus stop was spending their morning clearing up the grass and shrubbery that had overgrown in the area. You see, this area had become infested with local goons who would hide in the bushes, catcalling and eve-teasing women who passed by, sometimes even physically attacking them. One of the villagers, who had his daughter troubled by these jerks, decided he would personally begin clearing the area out to save the girls of his village. And so that was what he was doing that morning when a strong smell overpowered his efforts. He couldn't ignore it. He followed the smell, and the closer he got, the louder became the sound of flies buzzing. An animal must have died, he thought, until he stumbled at the source of the smell. It was a woman. A semi-naked woman whose pants and underwear had been removed, but her top, the police uniform shirt, was still on her body. While the body had clearly decomposed and a lot of it had been eaten by wild animals, the brutal wounds on her body were still obvious. She had large lashes all over her chest, abdomen and thighs, her lip was slit open, and sexual assault seemed obvious. But unfortunately, while the autopsy did determine rape before and after she died, decomposition had destroyed any semen or other DNA remains that could have been found off of her.
Just to be clear, you said there was evidence of necrophilia found.
Which is, yes, rape after someone has died. Her nameplate revealed who she was though. Priyamani. Officer Swaminathan was called to the scene of the crime, where he immediately noticed the similarity between Priyamani's injuries and those of all of the other women who had been dying around the highway. They all had long cuts across their bodies that looked like lashes almost. They had all been sexually assaulted before and after death, and a ton of them had slit open lips, which indicated that they had been repeatedly and heavily slapped to the point that their faces bled. While all these women were different from each other in age, occupation, or area of residence, they all seemed to be killed in remarkably similar ways. That was piece number 1 of the puzzle for Inspector Swaminathan. This piece invigorated him to find the killer. Not only had he failed to protect the women of his jurisdiction, he had failed to protect one of his own. He took Priyamani's death to be a direct attack on the police force and all womankind, and decided, come hell or high water, he would catch the man or men responsible. But piece 2 of the puzzle that proved that this may be one single serial killer came when, after Priyamani's body's discovery, Swaminathan began talking to all of the women who knew someone who had disappeared or been found dead. And in talking to those women, he met 45-year-old Shyamala. Shyamala didn't tell him the story of some woman she knew who had died or disappeared. She told him her own story, her own close encounter with the devil that roamed Highway 47 in the silence of the night. Shyamala, who lived more than 200 kilometers from where Priyamani disappeared, had been out in her local market after sundown in July of 2009, just a month before Priyamani failed to come back home. As Shyamala was walking home with her groceries in hand, a large truck, the kind that roams the highways at night, stopped right behind her. The door of the truck opened and out jumped a man with unruly hair, a large beard and mustache, holding a bag in hand. As this man began following Shyamala, Shyamala tried to get quicker, but he caught up. "Where are you headed? All alone?" "It's late and the roads are not safe around here," the man said to Shyamala, clearly sounding drunk out of his mind. I'll be fine, thank you, she said, walking faster than she knew she could, knowing something was wrong. I can drop you wherever you're going, the drunk man said to her, now blocking her way and not letting her move. Thank you, I'll manage, Shamla said, trying to get away from him, but now he seemed angry. Fucking bitch, he screamed at her as he grabbed her and dragged her to the bushes on the side of the road. There, he strangled her as he drooled onto her body, eventually pulling out a machete he scared her with. He put his hand on her mouth to get her to be quiet and began to pull up her sari when suddenly Shamla heard something in the back. It seemed like people from the homes nearby had heard her screams. It seemed like some men had come to her rescue. Now the tables turned as Shamla tried to grab onto this man, trying to keep him there to get him caught, but he tried to get her off of him and run away. And he succeeded. He managed to push Shamla off as he ran towards his truck, got in and sped away from the group of men that had collected to save Shamla. Shamla had tried to keep him there. She had tried to save any other woman he might go on to attack, but it hadn't worked. But Shamla didn't stop at that. She went to her local police station and lodged a complaint against this man and made the police note down his appearance. She desperately hoped this would help catch him before it got too late for some other women. Little did she know, just weeks later, Priyamani would be on the side of a road just like Shamala, fighting for her life just like Shamala, but she wouldn't end up being as lucky as her. To Inspector Swaminathan, Shamla's story explained a lot. The man was a truck driver going along the national highway, possibly in late hours of the night. It was the perfect time of the day to find women alone, where their screams wouldn't wake anyone. He probably got women by offering or agreeing to give them a ride, subsequently raping and murdering them, leaving their bodies along the vast stretch of highway far away from where the women's homes were, leading to many of them never being found. It explained how the killer had access to women across 3 states without the killer's own family finding his behavior odd. It made perfect sense. The killer lived a nomadic life, and so his presence across state lines or his absence at home was never weird. With these 2 pieces of the puzzle in his hand, Inspector Swaminathan was sure he had a serial killer roaming his streets, and he wasn't going to rest before he got him. His first order of business was taking the physical description given by Shamala and distributing it across state lines to any and all police stations he could get his hands on. He told local forces to keep their eyes and ears open, to apprehend any truck driver who seemed even a little bit suspicious. His next order of business was to wait. He needed to wait for his killer to make a mistake, like he did with Shamala by attacking her in a busy area. He needed to wait for his killer to get impulsive. And surely, soon enough, his phone rang with the news he had been yearning for. A truck driver had been caught in a field near the highway. A young 20-some-year-old was raped and left to die, but she survived. Her family found her and brought her home. The villagers, knowing well of the news of a serial killer on the prowl, deployed locals to stand by the area where the girl was found in the hopes that the man would return. And sure enough, in the late hours of the night, a man in a truck arrived at the scene of the crime, possibly to check whether or not the girl was dead and maybe to move her body far away. That's when the locals caught him and took him to the nearest police station, where he was now behind bars. The psycho had been caught, and everyone breathed a little easy. The moment Inspector Swaminathan sat across from his notorious serial killer in an interrogation room, this man's lack of remorse stood out to him. He was proud, unabashed, almost casual in his mannerisms, more concerned with being caught than with the lives of those he had caused. In fact, he was so proud and casual that there wasn't much of an interrogation to be had. This man revealed everything to Swaminathan. He started by revealing the basics. His name was M. Shankar, and he was 32 years old. He was a truck driver by profession. He had a wife whom he had gotten married to when he was just 23 and she was just 15. With her, he had 3 daughters whom he hadn't seen in years after he ran out on them. He had both his parents too, whom also he hadn't seen in many years. Yes, he raped women. Yes, he killed women. Yes, he killed Priyamani. Yes, he killed all the prostitutes. Yes, he attacked and tried to kill Shamala. Yes, he raped and tried to kill the 20-some-year-old. None of this was a mystery that needed solving. What was a mystery was why. When did this start? And to those questions, Shankar gave revealing answers. He was born to a poor family where his mother stayed back home taking care of him and his older siblings, while his father drove a truck to earn them whatever little money he could. Most of his father's money, though, never reached Shankar or his mother or his siblings. His father squandered it all on alcohol, drinking till the depths of the night, after which he would come home angry, ready to beat Shankar's mother brutally. When Shankar would intervene or even so much as catch his father's attention, it would be his turn to get brutally beaten up. Whatever money his father didn't blow on alcohol, he spent on prostitutes that he would bring home. His father would lock himself up in his bedroom with the woman he would bring night after night, where he would force Shankar's mother to serve him and the prostitutes food and drinks. When Shankar would ask his mother who these women were, she would tell him they were his father's friends. But that explanation never quite made sense to a young Shankar. If they were his father's friends, why would he and his siblings hear the sounds of slaps and moans and grunts from inside what was supposed to be his parents' bedroom? Their curiosity had gotten the better of them as kids, with all of them lining up outside the bedroom with their ears attached to the door as they heard the noises that came from within and their mother cried in the kitchen. Back then, Shankar didn't know who these women were or what it meant to be a prostitute. All he noticed was their tight and skimpy clothes, their heavy makeup and their high heels. They seemed so different from Shankar's own mother. Shankar's only happy memories with his father included the few times he would tell Shankar about the crazy stories of being a truck driver. Those only happy memories stuck in Shankar's mind, with the highway fascinating him to no end. To end his fascination with the highway, Shankar's mother tried to save him by getting him married to a 15-year-old. But after having 3 daughters, Shankar had had enough. He still yearned for the road like his father, even though a part of him hated his father. And that's when he ran away from home one evening, finally getting a job as a truck driver in his late 20s. Despite running away though, Shankar never dreamed of hurting a woman back then. He had loved his mother. He had daughters of his own. He could never. All he knew was he had violent sexual fantasies that he repressed by going to erotic movie stores. From watching women, he gravitated to following prostitutes who stood outside bars, prostitutes who looked exactly like the women his father would bring home and force his mother to serve. Until finally, one day, he attacked a prostitute with a bamboo stick in the middle of an open street. The moment she fell to the ground though, he panicked, ran away, and then didn't follow another woman for many months. What he was capable of had scared him, and a part of him didn't want it to be that way. So he began drinking so much that he didn't have the sensibilities to follow anyone. But that didn't last long, and his violent sexual urges returned. This time, he resolved he would attack a woman in a much more private location, resolving to not get caught. And that is when he committed his first murder, by following a prostitute into her home, hitting her till she was unconscious, kidnapping her in his truck, raping her, brutally killing her, and then dropping her body off at the side of the road. And that was it. That was the beginning of Shankar's murderous spree. Somewhere in that spree, one evening, when he just couldn't control the urge to rape a woman, he stumbled upon a woman at a dhaba who was not a prostitute. He offered her a ride to her destination, brutally raped her, murdered her, and then dumped her body in the process, and suddenly realized that his sexual urges were just as easily fulfilled by women who weren't prostitutes. It could be any woman, he realized. That is when he attacked Shamala, killed Priyamani, and raped the 20-some-year-old girl. He told the police about the night of Priyamani's murder, how she had asked for a lift home, how he had taken her to an isolated location, how she had even managed to run away from him, but how, likely due to tardiness from a crazy work schedule, she had collapsed on the ground after her feet gave way. He caught up with her, raped her, brutally killed her with a machete. He raped her 2 more times after she died, and then dumped her body in the ditch.
The details here are given by him.
By him, yeah, absolutely.
The fact that, so he confessed to necrophilia
Yes,
on
yes.
his own
Yes,
volition.
of his own volition, yeah.
That just shows how
The
deranged this
depravity of the
individual
man.
is.
I know.
This case is reminiscent of many of those American serial killer cases
Yeah,
where
it
you
is.
can see this sort of Freudian sexual maturity
In a young kid.
kid causing something,
Mhm.
like with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
The Netflix series, I think, really well shows the insides of a serial killer's
Mhm,
mind.
mhm.
And again, we said this on the show many times. Explanation is not justification.
Right.
But it's saddening and fascinating to see what made Psycho Shankar
Psycho Shankar, I know. What's tragic is that by the time Shankar was caught by S. Swaminathan, he had raped 20 women, 13 of whom he had successfully managed to murder in cold blood. While 20 and 13 are the number of women the police have conclusively been able to tie to Shankar, the inspectors believe the number in reality is much, much higher. While his backstory didn't fully answer the question why, it gave the inspectors a glimpse into a broken mind, like Aryaan said, caused by a broken childhood. A sick man who didn't realize he was sick. A man whose actions seemed absolutely justifiable to him. But there was no time to feel any remorse for this man. The inspectors needed him off the streets, and so they moved fast with his confession. After which, Shankar, now being called Psycho Shankar by the media and people, was moved to a high security prison to await trial, where he waited in custody for 2 years. Finally, 2011 had arrived, and trial was on the cusp of beginning. If you're thinking this is the happy ending of this story, the delivery of safety to the women of these states, oh, how you're wrong. You see, while Shankar had to be transferred from the prison he had spent 2 years in to the Coimbatore prison where trial was to be held, 2 inspectors of the Tamil Nadu Special Force were given the responsibility of escorting him. These 2 inspectors, Inspector Rajaram and Kondasamy, woke up early on the morning of March 18, 2011 to transport the notorious serial killer they were made responsible for. They were to wait at the Salem bus depot in the night, where a regular public bus would come to get the criminal for the 100+ kilometer journey to Coimbatore. Not only that, but because Shankar was travelling in a public bus, the law stated he could not be handcuffed so as to prevent a lynching by the mob.
What are you saying? He was a publicly notorious figure by now.
Who's going in a public bus, like just sitting with
I
regular people.
thought you said public bus, so
The
that
empty
it's
public
as a,
bus.
you know, it's like
no,
a decoy
full public bus with people
other
in it.
public
yes,
in it.
yes. Which is why he can't be handcuffed either. It's the
Why?
weirdest thing. I don't know what. I hope that's.
This is not even corruption. This is just complacency.
Stupidity. Yeah. No, I know. So not only was he being transported in this public bus, but he also could not be handcuffed from fear of the mob lynching him. He needed to blend with the public. At that bus depot, as the trio waited for their bus to arrive, Shankar made a demand. He wanted a super deluxe bus, not a regular bus filled with common people. The inspectors obviously found the demand appalling, but they were trying not to stir the pot too much. They just needed to get this man to Coimbatore. And so Raja Ram walked to the ticket stall to get a super deluxe bus ticket. Now it was just Kondasamy and Shankar when Shankar made another demand. I think a cup of masala chai before we board isn't a bad idea. What do you say? Isn't that a tea stall there? Shankar said, pointing to the distance. Instinctively, Kondasamy turned to the tea stall and the idea of masala tea actually sounded great to him. Let's wait for Rajaram to return, he said as he turned his back to Shankar, only to have his heart drop to his feet. It sounds like a scene from a badly directed movie, but Shankar was gone within the bat of an eyelid. The inspector searched everywhere in the vicinity, asked everyone around, but the man who had terrorized the highways of 3 states was gone within seconds. The men quickly informed their superiors in Coimbatore and they were instructed to board the next bus to Coimbatore themselves. On that bus ride, guilt weighed heavy on both of them. They knew more women were going to die now, and even though they weren't the ones doing the killing, it would feel as though their blood was on their hands.
Kind of justified that
I get
it's
that,
on their hands.
But what's coming next will break your heart.
Okay.
When the bus finally arrived in Coimbatore, Rajaram noticed how distraught Kondasamy looked. He told him to get a grip. He promised him that they'd explain their side of their story to their superiors, that they'd apologize, and that they'd accept the fate that would come their way like men. And for a second, maybe Rajaram felt like Kondasamy believed him. The two men got off the bus and began walking towards the gates of the police station where they were likely going to see the end of their careers. Rajaram walked in the front with Kundasamy behind him. Maybe that's why Rajaram didn't notice when Kundasamy took out the pistol from his holster, pointed it to his own chin, and shot himself outside the police station.
Oh.
I know. They made a mistake, I get it. But
No, see,
and
I
a
mean,
really
if
bad
you-
mistake,
I'll,
of
I'll,
course.
I'll tell you this: if he wouldn't have killed himself,
They would
it
have
is a
deserved
big-
not keeping their jobs. They would
yes,
have
but
deserved.
Aishwarya, now I guess hindsight is 2020. They weren't the ones who said, "Let's take him on a public bus."
That's true. There were systemic problems
There
that
was
led
a systemic
to not
problem
being.
that, and I mean, could have been anybody in their position, but it's heartbreaking that
I
he killed
know.
himself.
I know. When Rajaram turned around, all he could do was fall to his knees, hold his friend's now lifeless body in his arms, and cry. Somehow, just hours after his escape, Psycho Shankar had managed to already take another life. Believe it or not, getting caught and being in prison for 2 years didn't stop Shankar's crime spree. Inspector Swaminathan says it best himself in a meeting with his superiors. Quote, "With all due respect for the manners in which we run our jails, there is nothing in our prisons of a therapeutic nature that would have made Shankar a reformed man with a change in his habits. If the type of person he is, a psychopath who has raped and murdered numerous women, was back on the roads after a long period of incarceration, we can assume with a high degree of confidence that he will go back to his old ways once again. I do not believe that he has received anything inside our jails that might have helped him sort out his sickness. No one who has not been in a jail on a serious charge for several months can imagine how hard it is, especially for the first few months. But here's the catch. For anyone who survived those first 6 months, the idea of being in a jail begins to lose its impact. I hope there will be a day when our criminal justice system realizes this hard truth. If you keep a man in jail beyond a certain period of time, he learns to adapt to prison. A long incarceration numbs out the sensitivities of an individual, so much so that when he is back on the streets again, he is less fearful of prison and hence more inclined to criminal behavior. Jail is no longer that unknown, threatening, horrible place he was once afraid of." End quote. And Inspector Swaminathan was correct. For the next few months, in the state of Karnataka this time, woman after woman kept disappearing and showing up dead, just like in Tamil Nadu.
Did they immediately figure it was him?
I think people in the villages who were experiencing this didn't immediately know it because, again, this is not a time of social media. This is a time where reading the newspaper would be probably the only way to do it. These are also two different states.
But I'm sure
But the
when
police will find out.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, on the 28th of March 2011, 3 women were raped and murdered in a less than 24-hour span. It was nothing like the police had seen before, not even with Shankar himself. He seemed to be out of control. Just 3 days after that, a woman named Geeta was washing her clothes in the village well in the Tumkur district of Karnataka when she suddenly couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. But when she looked around, nobody was there. But she heard some bushes ruffle, which startled her. Her own hut, where her husband was right next to the well, so she decided to walk towards the hut to the safety of her husband's presence. But as she walked towards her home, Shankar jumped out of the bushes and pinned her to the ground, trying to rape her and suffocate her at the same time. Geeta's husband heard her screams and ran out to the hut, but the moment Shankar saw him, he left Geeta, ran to her husband and punched him hard in the stomach. Geeta's husband fell to the ground, but Shankar didn't stop beating him. Eventually, when he was unconscious, Shankar dragged him into his own hut, picked up a box of matchsticks and lit the hut on fire as Geeta watched in shock. Shankar locked the door of the hut, leaving Geeta's husband inside to burn alive. Outside the hut, Shankar overpowered Geeta and raped her not once but thrice. When he was done with her, he picked up a stick and smashed it in her head till nothing was left of her head anymore. As the last day of March came to an end with the brutal death of Geeta and her husband and April began, Shankar's murders ramped up with many others reported all throughout the month. His murderous spree kept going, but there is no perfect murderer. There was bound to be a slip-up, just like the first time. And so the police waited, and the slip-up came when Shankar got caught by villagers in May of 2011, 2 months after he had run away from the two inspectors in Tamil Nadu, as he was trying to attack a woman named Chandralekha, but her husband heard her screams and alerted locals, all of whom came to her rescue.
I have not been, so shocked by. Usually, when I get shocked on this show is when there is severe injustice, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time getting shocked out of, not fear. I don't know if fear is the right word, but I'm overwhelmed.
I know
by
what
the
that
violence.
feeling is. Yeah.
The gore.
The lack of any sort of boundary.
Yeah,
Of
and,
what?
and
Yeah.
I know it's sad that the constables involved, one of them killed themselves, but I think the latter few deaths are on the Tamil Nadu Police Department.
Yeah. Whatever that mistake may be, whether it's the police van thing, whether the bus thing, whatever.
People make mistakes, but a pilot cannot crash a plane and the airline can go, but he made a some
mistake.
jobs do not allow for
Allow for
mistakes,
mistake.
especially mistakes of the kind
I agree.
where you let a serial killer loose when you have him.
Yeah, I agree.
Man.
The villagers knew who they had caught though and handed Shankar over to the nearest police station, after which he was transferred to a much larger police station in Chitradurga. At that station, none other than Rajaram, the inspector who had lost Shankar just months ago, was called to identify Shankar. And identify Rajaram did. Soon, Shankar was placed in a much higher security prison in Bangalore while he awaited trial to begin. A trial that would now feature a much higher sentence than before due to the whole slew of new murders Shankar had committed in Karnataka. By 2013, Shankar had already been given 27 years behind bars for some of his charges, while hearings for other cases went on, for which he kept appearing in court at regular intervals. The 31st of August 2015 was one such day where Shankar appeared in court for a murder charge. That night, after the regular rounds by guards, Shankar got into a prison guard's uniform, a uniform that was likely given to him by a prison guard. Shankar used a key to open his own prison cell, a key also given to him most likely by a prison guard, and Shankar slipped out of his cell.
What?
I know.
What?
I know. With the other guards around him all asleep at 2 a.m., Shankar met no opposition to his prison escape. Using bed sheets to climb up and down walls, Shankar left the prison compound through a door he didn't even try to open because by mistake someone had forgotten to lock it or left it open on purpose.
This is a joke, Aishwarya.
This
is
is-
the
I know.
Indian police. This is not 1970s when we are building back the nation
No, this
from
is
colonialism.
13? Yeah, I know.
This is 2013, guys.
I know.
Get your shit together. What is this?
I know. But if this is corruption, this is incompetency.
What
either
is
way.
this truck driver giving the police? This is complacency.
I don't know, man.
This angers me almost more than corruption because
Yeah.
these are the incentives
I know,
are
the
nothing
incentive is
but
nothing, yeah.
just you not doing your job well.
Yeah. Within minutes, the man that 3 states had paid an arm and a leg to try and catch had escaped once again. This time not because of the ignorance or naivete of those responsible for keeping him captured, but he had escaped because of corruption. Or maybe it was naivete, like Aryaan said. He escaped because the prison system helped him escape. Yet again, inspectors from all over Bangalore found themselves in an insane rat race trying to catch a man they knew they hadn't been able to contain.
Jai Shankar is concerned, we are making the efforts. We are in touch with the neighboring state police officers. Our teams are on the job. We have not received any definite clues about it. We are working on it.
The more times they lost him, the harder became their ability to catch him every time. For example, the police knew that Shankar knew that his cell phone location had been tracked last time, and so this time he would very likely not use his phone at all. But Inspector Swaminathan was smarter than this. Just because Shankar wouldn't use his own phone doesn't mean he wouldn't use any phone. So instead of tracking Shankar's phone, Inspector Swaminathan reverse engineered the process and decided to track the people that Shankar was likely to call. He dug deep to find calls made by Shankar from the prison authorized phone and realized that he had called one person the most, a man named Pasha, who had been in prison with Shankar and had become Shankar's closest friend. But Pasha was released shortly before Shankar's escape. Inspector Swaminathan had faith Shankar would try calling Pasha from whatever phone he could get his hands on. And so the inspector called Pasha to the police station and asked him if Shankar had called yet. Pasha said no. And then, just on the fly, Inspector Swaminathan trusted his gut instinct, promised Pasha 5 lakh rupees as bounty if Pasha came to the police once Shankar did call, and let Pasha go, hoping he would return soon with the news of Shankar. Now, if we've learned anything from this episode so far, it's to trust Inspector Swaminathan, because surely within days of this meeting with Pasha, Pasha was back in the police station. Shankar had called from the phone of a random passerby in a village very close to the prison. Shankar was badly wounded in his legs and back from having jumped prison walls and had only a few $100 left that were fast depleting. His name and face were plastered all over newspapers in all southern Indian states. He needed to run out of Karnataka soon, and he needed Pasha to come get him. Shankar had told Pasha that Pasha could call him back on the same number with details of where to meet, and in those 30 minutes, Pasha had arrived in front of Inspector Swaminathan. Shankar is hiding in a fisherman's hut by the Nagendra Reddy lake, he told Inspector Swaminathan. He had done it again. The third time, and this time needed to be the last. He instructed Pasha to call Shankar and tell him that Pasha would be sending a friend on a bike to get him from the hut. And Pasha did just that as the police force readied to go grab their mastermind criminal. Soon, officers had surrounded the fisherman's hut from all sides and closed in to nab Shankar. Upon being caught, Shankar couldn't believe the friend he had trusted had ratted him out. The hypocrisy of betraying so many women who had trusted him for rides back to the safety of their homes was obviously lost on him. Regardless though, Psycho Shankar had been caught yet again. And without keeping any suspense, I will gladly tell you this was the last time he was caught. He did not run away again, at least not in the conventional sense of the way. You see, after being caught, Shankar was sent to the Victoria Hospital where he was treated for his injuries that cost the government 75,000 rupees. After his treatment was over, on the 23rd of September 2013, Shankar was sent to the Bangalore Central Jail, yet again, where this time he was put in a high security cell with 24-hour CCTV monitoring and a guard monitoring him. He spent years in that high security cell, slowly giving up on life bit by bit. On the 25th of February 2018, almost a decade after Priyamani had disappeared from the highway of Tamil Nadu, the day that the world woke up to the tragic news of Sridevi's death, Shankar tried escaping prison one last time, but failed and was put in solitary confinement. He wasn't alone in solitary confinement though. With him was a blade given to him by his barber a few days ago, his last aid. In the wee hours of the night on the 27th of February 2018, Shankar put the blade to his own neck and sliced it. He fell to the ground, blood gushing out onto the cold and unwelcoming prison floor. This was his final attempt at escape, and he was successful. Hours later, Psycho Shankar would be pronounced dead, and women all across India would breathe a sigh of relief. But to those who had lost daughters, sisters, wives, girlfriends, best friends, this seemed too easy. It seemed like another attempt at running away from the full wrath of the law, from the years he would have spent in prison thinking about the lives he had taken. This seemed unfair. But maybe, just maybe, we can hope that somewhere in a realm after this life, there is a world where Shankar finds himself standing alone, vulnerable and scared, on a different version of the Highway of Terror. If you like what we do here at Desi Studios and absolutely love what we're wearing today, this is merch you can go buy all for yourself.
You can buy this Desi Crime merch in our YouTube store on the link down below at Kadak Merch. Keep the engines at Desi Studios rolling so we can pay our videographer right behind the camera to make these amazing episodes just for you.